Okay, looks like we're live. Good evening, District 5 constituents and residents and business owners. I'm City Councilor Cynthia Borrego, and tonight we are here with our virtual open house. This is one of our quarterly meetings. As you know, I try to hold 4 quarterly meetings throughout the year. It's been a little rough with COVID. And tonight we're going to have some discussions on our agenda regarding COVID, but we're also going to have some briefings for those of you who don't have the agenda right in front of you. I will give you a little bit of an introduction, and then we will have our Northwest Area Command, including we will have our Acting Commander Cecily Barker, Lieutenant Sanchez, and Lieutenant Evans. I believe they're both on tonight. We will have a report from Pete Gelibert, and we will also have a report from our Albuquerque Fire Rescue Chief Battalion Pasquale Delucci, and I hope I said that correctly. I practiced a little bit. We are also, and he is representing Chief Paul Dow. And we will also have our environmental health Deputy Director, Mark DeMena, who I see on the screen. So it looks like everyone is present. I would also like to introduce 2 of the people that are working with me tonight, my assistant policy analyst, Susan B. Hill, and Julian Moya is our moderator. He does all of our city council media. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I'm using my phone because I have my agenda right here. So it's easier than navigating 2 different computers to use my telephone computer. So I just want to welcome all of you. I know it's been a rough year. I think in January we had our first open house, and then we all got hit with COVID in March. And it's been a tough time for everyone. Including, you know, the city, this county, the state. I was on a call earlier today with the governor, and she was talking a little bit about some of her actions, and we've all watched those live on, you know, on TV, and so we know some of the things that have occurred. It doesn't look like COVID is going to go away anytime soon, so we may have our last quarterly meeting this year, probably in December sometime, also virtual. So this is getting to be very interesting for us. Most of our city council meetings have been broadcast virtual. And, you know, it's been difficult for both the councilors and our residents and business owners, because we can't really communicate in the way that we're used to communicating. This is, I guess, the new way of doing business. I'd want to give you just a quick update on some of the projects, and Susan's going to give me time so that we don't run too late. We started about 6 or 7 minutes late, so I'm going to try to keep on schedule. We're going to have a briefing from all of the people that I had mentioned, and then at the end we're going to have a conversation. There are individuals who have already submitted some questions, and we will try to address those. So that's kind of our agenda for tonight, and we're hoping to adjourn by about 8 o'clock, maybe a little bit later than that, but we're trying to stay on schedule because this is also going to be live streamed on YouTube. So with that, I would like to tell you some of the projects that we've been working on. You've probably seen some of the news regarding Paseo del Norte, and you know that that's been one of my achievements in terms of working with the community and the legislature and the mayor's office and the city in general to ensure that we add those 2 additional lanes. We have at this point, thanks to our not this past council meeting, but the one before that, we were able to secure some tax money, some of our transportation money to go toward Paseo. We've also secured some of our legislative money at capital outlay, and we were able to save some of that money because we were concerned that, you know, the legislature was going to scoop some of that up because, you know, we know that they're going to be having difficulty in probably in the next year or so with our economy being what it has been. So at this point in time, we're looking at a $24 million project, 24 to 26 million. It changes every time I talk to the engineers, but the longer we wait, the more it rises. We have secured about $17 million, and we've already hired a designer. It's WH Pacific is the designer for that, and they've been contracted to the tune of about 2.5 million, a little bit more than 2.5 million. I'm just talking right now in generalities, but if you look at my webpage, you can see the exact numbers for that. And their work is probably going to look at about 18 months for design. We're hoping that that project will be done in 2 phases. And those phases would include Kimmick to Unser, and then Unser to Rainbow. So that project will help also with our public safety, which has been a real concern for us, especially with police and fire, in terms of the cars trying, you know, the ambulances and fire trucks and police cars trying to get through to areas in Ventana Ranch. Another project that we're working on right now is Cibola Loop. We have a new design team that includes the Office of Senior Affairs, and the mayor's office has designated a project manager to that particular project. We were able to secure our 2019 capital outlay money that we had secured for that. And we're also looking at trying to buy 1 additional 5-acre parcel in there. We've already done an RFP for the housing portion of that, and we're waiting to hear who that housing portion will be awarded to. And as you know, I've been fighting for that one to be more towards senior housing, and that would be somewhat affordable senior housing. And I don't want another high rise. So I've been looking to have it designed a little more sort of single family type units or condominiums or something like that makes more sense, because there's already a lot of density in that area. That will include a multi-generational center, a library, a swimming pool, and I think that's, I'm not missing anything else. So that is a project that we have secured some funding for, and Susan's going to go into that at the very end, so he can tell you the exact numbers. Some other things that we're doing is we have decided to do a speed study on golf course because there's a lot of cut through traffic. And so I'm working with Mr. Cog, which is the Middle Rio Grande Council of Governments. And we are also going to have to work with the county on that because there's a portion of golf course that includes county. But as you know, because of all this cut through traffic, there have been problems with people on speeding down golf course. So we're going to see how we can address some of those issues. We've had issues regarding the turn in at the Smiths right off of Paseo, and the Starbucks, and those turn radiuses were secured before I became counselor, so it's hard to reopen those. But I think the speed study will allow us to kind of look at the whole stretch of golf course, all the way from Rio Rancho all the way to Montano. Other projects that we're working on include commercial nodes. I've identified 7 to 8 commercial nodes in District 5, and those include McMahon and Unser, Cottonwood Mall, Paseo and Golf Course. I mean, we have just a whole slew of area Coors and oh gosh, I'm trying to where the Target is. I'm trying to remember the name of that street. I'm sorry, it kind of went over my head, but so we're working to hire a small company that is trying to help organize businesses, and we're in the process of doing the commercial node at Unser and McMahon. We're finishing up that commercial node. We've already organized the businesses. We're hoping that in time they will become a business association, and we're working with our police department to ensure that these businesses are protected. And as you know, COVID has caused people to do things that are out of the ordinary. So we want to protect our small businesses. Those are some of the projects that we're working on. We have quite a number of other projects that is on my website. I don't want to go too long because I want to get through our agenda tonight, but those are some of the projects that we, in terms of issues related to the city. If you watch our city council meeting, you'll see that we just dealt with the gun issues, and some of those items were voted down. I'm getting a text that I'm over my time. So with that, if people have questions, they can email me and we can discuss some more issues that might be concerning. I have included tonight briefings from our Northwest Area Commander, and she is going to give you a brief update along with her two lieutenants, Sanchez and Evans. And Commander, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here tonight. I just give you a brief update on what's going on in the Northwest Area Command, and then I'll let Lieutenant Sanchez and our crime scene specialist expand a little bit. At the end of last month in August, we had a new bid, and what that means is that officers bid for an area command in different positions. So you will see some new officers and new chain of command up to the lieutenants within the area command. Lieutenant Sanchez did work in the Northwest last bid and returned. He's working day shift this bid. I'll be sending out another update, a newsletter in October, and it will just have some information on our new supervisors and how to contact them. When we're looking at the problems or the issues that we're seeing right now, over the last month, we had at least 50 auto burglaries within our area command alone. Prior to that, we were doing really well. Property crime was down, but specifically in the last few weeks, and this is not only just from seeing police reports coming in, but I also am a member of Nextdoor app and Ring app. And so I see a lot of the videos coming in. And while there are some auto burglaries that are being caused by broken windows, most of it is just people going vehicle to vehicle, house to house, checking doors. Unfortunately, most of the posts that you even see, people say it's the one time that I left my vehicle unlocked, the one time. And so we really just want to get the information out there to double check that, make sure that you bring your valuables in. What we're doing to address that is our graveyard team, because the busiest time for these auto burglaries is about 1 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So our graveyard team is really going to be focusing on attack plan. We have had bait cars, so vehicles that auto theft monitors, and also bait items inside of those bait cars. So if the property is stolen from inside of the vehicle, it can be tracked. And if the vehicle is stolen itself, that vehicle can be tracked. We recently had one of the vehicles stolen from the Boulder neighborhood. Unfortunately, the offenders did get away, but we've had several good catches with that. And the graveyard lieutenant is going to continue to work with street crimes and auto theft so that we can address these property crimes that are going on. One thing that I did see recently on a post, and it was also brought to my attention, by City Councilor Borrego is there was a post and the individual was concerned and believed that the police department is not using video and that it serves no purpose and we won't look at it. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that is not accurate. We want video. If there's any type of, whether you have a Ring device or you post it on Nextdoor, we take that information, specifically Pete, the crime scenes or crime prevention specialist, and he sends that out in an email to all of the officers and specifically the supervisors. There are several times that officers are able to identify who these individuals are breaking into cars simply based off of the video or the photos that we have. An example of that is there was a person of interest in a homicide that recently came out, and the homicide unit was trying to identify this individual. And that day alone, 3 officers in the Northwest Area Command were able to tell the homicide detective who this individual was, and it was merely based off of a photo. So please let everybody know, let your neighbors know. If you have video, make sure that you do send that to us, and we encourage that. The final thing that I'll talk about is just the speeding. We've seen an increase in that over the entire city. Within the area command, the major intersections that we receive the most complaints are going to be Coors and DeLynn, Unser and McMahon, Golf Course in Paradise, 72nd and Ladera. We've been moving our speed trailers around to address the speeding. In addition, our officers have been completing TAC plans. I know looking at Golf Course in Paradise alone, there's an officer who works grant overtime, and he's issued over 100 citations in the last few weeks at that intersection alone. We're working really closely with the traffic unit in reference to the speeding at Coors and DeLynn. As you know, there has been some fatal accidents at that intersection. Lastly, I do have one more thing. The shootings in the Northwest Area Command in the last 28 days are down 75%. So that's really great. We hope to continue to see that trend. And I've brought it up before at some of the meetings that we've had. A lot of the shootings with injury that we're seeing in the Northwest Area Command are accidental shootings. One of the things that I'm working with Sochi Biggs on is to put out a public service announcement just on basic gun safety tips, just to bring that to the attention of the community. Lieutenant Sanchez, do you want to take a moment just to introduce yourself and talk about some trends that you're seeing?
Sorry about that delay. I was trying to get this Zoom thing unmuted. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lieutenant Jose Sanchez. I am the Northwest Lieutenant. Like the commander mentioned, that this is going to be my second bid up in the Northwest. I just want to touch base as far as the videos that the commander mentioned. Those, for some people, those might think that they might be irrelevant or not really needed for a case, but and it might be, people might seem insignificant. Just how are we going to identify somebody off a picture, off a photo, a still shot, or just a vague video? But like she mentioned, these are very important, and there's officers out there that are very proactive and know some of these offenders, and that's how we identify them. To them, it might seem like it's not a whole lot of good information, but to us, it could be a gold mine in trying to get some of these crimes solved. So that's one of the things I just want to touch in regards to those videos. The speeding in the Northwest. We are currently about to move a few of the speed trailers to other major intersections along Unser and Paseo to start monitoring the speeding there. I believe 2 of our speed trailers we can pull data from. We'll use that data and specifically assigned Northwest officers to start doing some traffic enforcement in that area, and we also share the data with the traffic unit to hopefully come up with a plan in reducing the speeding and just traffic violations in general. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Lieutenant Evans, did you have anything you wanted to add?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. No, some of the trends that I'm noticing, aside from the auto burglaries and things like that, is I'm noticing a lot of firearms being left in vehicles and those firearms being stolen. And of course, I support our Second Amendment. However, we have to be responsible gun owners and make sure that our firearms are securely locked up within our homes, preferably in a safe. So if we can get that information out, that should help quit arming the bad guys. And then I've noticed now, granted, I've only been in the Northwest Area Command for a couple of weeks. I come from the Southeast Area Command. But I noticed that we do have a lot of traffic issues here that we're addressing on swing shift. We're also addressing a lot of the crime that's coming with transient population, a lot of issues at businesses, aggressive panhandling, trespassing, things like that. We've been addressing that. But so far, so good. Everything seems to be moving smoothly. And I have seen traffic improve since for the couple of weeks that we've been doing this. So I'm encouraged.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Thank you, Lieutenant Sanchez. Thank you, Commander. I just wanted to give a shout out to our commander because our district, District 5, has the lowest number of crime in the city. And I was talking to her earlier tonight, and I said, you know, this is something that I'm very proud of. I also want to introduce Pete Gelibert, and Pete is our crime prevention specialist. Pete, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Would you like
Good
to say
evening,
something?
everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and being safe. Thank you, Councilor Borrego. A couple of things on the crime prevention side. October 6th is our National Night Out. We had to change the date from August. Anyone who's interested, go to the website, www.cabq.gov/National Night Out. When you're on this website, you could register, give your address, and if you're interested, place that address. We will receive that information, Commander Barker, and we will distribute the events, the individuals, locations that are going to be hosting National Night Out. Again, on the crime prevention.
We'll post that website on our website also, so people can have that address.
Thank you very much, Councilor. With the crime prevention, since March, Governor has initiated the COVID-19 initiative. We are starting back our neighborhood watch program. So I have sent emails through Nextdoor, our block captains. So we're starting to get emails from neighbors, individuals that are interested to start neighborhood watch. We want to start back that up because of the trends that the commander and the two lieutenants have mentioned with the auto burglaries. I think it's vital to start a neighborhood watch and have those neighbors be alert and notify the police. Another thing with our technology, like the Commander Barker said, we have our public safety neighborhood ring.com. Anyone who's interested, all they have to do is go through that link, register, it's free. And if you have any type of camera, regardless if it's a Ring camera or any other ones, if you happen to be a victim or your video shows any of these activities being involved, please, Commander Barker and myself will get these ring.coms automatically alerts, and we definitely give it for the officers so they can try and identify these individuals involved in these burglaries. With the warm weather still here, so we have seen activity during the swing shift and graveyard. So we need all the neighbors, all the residents just to be alert. And please, if you see anything suspicious, please dial the 242 cops in 911. One of the information I have received from neighbors, they're concerned about their safety. They do not want to be identified. So we emphasize to them, if they happen to call dispatch, just emphasize to the dispatchers to remain anonymous. You don't have to reveal your name or your phone number. This way here, the officers will receive it on their computer and they'll get the information and follow up. But for the safety of the neighbors, it'll just indicate caller is anonymous. And this is just for their safety, and they can feel a little bit more calm so that they know that calling us, no one else will know that they call the police to alert us on any type of criminal activity. Again, thank you for inviting me, Counselor.
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Pete. You're always welcome. And just as a follow-up to what Pete said, is if you also you can contact my office via email, or of course you can call our office if you don't want to be identified with the police, and we can pass the information on to the police as well. So, and I'm in touch with them on a regular basis. So with that, I thank the police for the work that they do. They know that they have my 150% support always. And I appreciate the work that they do, not just in our district, but in the city. And so I also want to turn now to Albuquerque Fire and Rescue. And tonight we have with us Battalion Chief Pasquale Gallucci. Is that right? Is that how I say it?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes,
I was a little worried about that.
no, that was perfect.
Well,
Good
you know, people destroy my name all the time. So would you like to go ahead?
Well, first, I wanted to thank you for providing funding for those thermal imaging cameras. When you were first elected, shortly after you did, we used one of those cameras to save a life here at in Station 17's district, just east of Ladera Golf Course. So we appreciate that. And I'm sure the family of that loved one appreciates that, ma'am. Thank you very much.
I was happy to do that.
And we currently have those thermal imaging cameras that you purchased for us on the rescues in your district, which would be Rescue 22, Rescue 21, and Rescue 18. That's all the three fire stations northwest of Coors and Montano. AFR is now in the process of purchasing those thermal imaging cameras for every single unit throughout the city, and we should have that done by October. Along with that, Station 9 should be completed in October. That's in the northeast, Montano and like Wyoming area. I know that's not part of our district, but I just wanted to share that with whoever's listening in. AFR's engaging in different programs to better serve the community. One's the HART program. It's called the Home Engagement Alternative Response Team. They go to people who don't know how to navigate the EMS system as far as utilizing their insurance to get rides to and from the hospital. So in the past, these patients or people would call us multiple times, sometimes multiple times a day, which is at a big cost to the taxpayer. In addition to that, it takes resources, engines and rescues responding to their calls away from the people in the surrounding neighborhoods. So we have non-emergency paramedics and EMTs responding to them to educate them and help them guide the way through the EMS system. Also, they help out with fall prevention. This really addresses the elderly folks in your district, ma'am. When they fall down, we go over there and we take a look at their house, evaluate what they need to do, and also provide some construction. And sometimes it's steps, sometimes it's
Mr. Gallucci, we're getting a little reverberation. Can you repeat that?
The number to call if you have any questions concerning that alternative response team.
Sorry,
if you could hear me, the number is 768-9. Okay. I said if you have any questions concerning the Home Engagement Alternative Response Team, the HART program, the phone number is 768-9339.
Okay, so that number is 768-9339 for the contact number.
Yes, ma'am. Right now, we currently have 8 firefighters in California battling the wildland fire. We've had different firefighters go to Arizona, California, and we try to help out our neighbors because if we have a big incident there, they're more than happy to send their help our way.
Well, we very much
Next
appreciate
month,
that.
yes. Next month, we'll be changing our clocks. When we do that, that's a great time to change the batteries in your smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. So if you don't mind putting that on your calendar, that's a nice little safety tip. Anytime you change your clocks, change your batteries in your smoke detectors and your carbon monoxide detectors. I just wanted to see if you had any questions of Albuquerque Fire Rescue, because I could go on with some of our stuff like rescuing.
If you do have questions, please
personal
put them in the
response.
chat box, and Susan or Julian will pull those out for either Albuquerque Fire and Rescue or APD. So that's just for the public. Otherwise, you could submit those questions to my office through my email, and that's Cynthia Borrego at cabq.gov, or to Susan V. Hill at susanvhill@cabq.gov, and we'll get you some answers. Thank you, Deputy Director, and we thank the chief for everything that you all do, because we know you guys, along with police, are out on the front lines and dealing with things that not necessarily in your job descriptions. So we're always there to support you. So we're going to move along on our agenda because I'm trying to keep us on. I think we're right on target, aren't we, Susan? Yeah, I think we are, which is great. The next person that I want to introduce is our Deputy Director of Environmental Health, Mark DeMena. And Mark, you're going to talk a little bit about COVID and some other things that are happening around the city. And so I will give you the floor.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Thanks for having me, and hello to folks at home. I intend to talk about COVID, and I kind of think that's almost a given for me. After the way the last 6 months have been, we spent a lot of time talking about that, as I know most folks have. But really quickly, I just wanted to touch on one other important public health development that's kind of gotten lost in some of the other ongoings this year. We have a mosquito species that we have found has become established in Albuquerque that's called Aedes aegypti. It's commonly known to mosquito biologists as the yellow fever vector, but it also is a very effective vector for things like Zika, dengue virus, and chikungunya. We don't have any of those things here currently. We've never worried about having them here because we didn't have a vector that was competent for them that could actually transmit those things. But because we have this mosquito here now, it sort of changes some of our public health outlook down the road. So we just want people to be aware of that. And most importantly, with Aedes aegypti, to be aware, it's a different type of mosquito. It very much likes to live in very close proximity to people's homes and multiply in things like flower pots or bird baths, very small amounts of water close to the home. So as we always do, we want to encourage people to eliminate any standing water around the home, especially if you started detecting some new mosquitoes that you hadn't really had an issue with before. That could be what's going on. And they're notorious daytime biters. They're active more in the daytime than in the evening. So they're very hard for us to do our traditional control on. So not to hijack COVID too much, but we did want people to be aware of that issue this year as well. The outlook for COVID, just continues to evolve every day. I think New Mexico in general, if folks haven't seen the recent article that came out on that, it was published in Scientific American, you can get it online, about what a great job New Mexico and all of us as New Mexicans have done in terms of working against the spread of COVID here. It's noteworthy. We're doing a very good job as a state. We've had some missteps and some upticks in cases, some surges as well. But overall, things have gone well. We've done a good job of flattening the curve here since the beginning. That is in large part thanks to all of the leadership that we have, but very much so all of the community for doing their part and everything that we're asking folks to do, maintaining social distancing, wearing masks, that type of thing, and above all, trying to stay home. The current outlook, we are at a point where the spread rate and the daily average cases are very low, the lowest they've been in quite some time. We seem to be doing very well as a state. The metro area in particular is continuing to do well. And as you may have heard some folks talk about in some of the other media briefings, we have a very high population density here. So we would have expected to have a significant problem controlling this, but we seem to be doing fairly well. The positivity rate is also very low. And for folks not familiar with that term, positivity has to do with how many tests are coming back positive for COVID. So as this discussion has evolved some over the summer about how many people get tested versus how many people are sick, yes, there is an argument if you do more testing, you'll find more COVID, but the positivity rate is actually a reflection of that. So that shows if the rate is down, even as you're doing more testing, that's a good sign. So that's what we want to see. So we continue to be in good shape. We continue to kind of hold that line. As you probably see, the governor is doing some more reopening of a few more things. Again, we urge people to be very cautious about how you go about doing that reopening. It's not a signal that, it's the all clear and we should all go rushing back to, large family gatherings or, dining out more than we have to. But of course, we also want people to, feel like they have a little bit of life and, support businesses wherever possible. But just do it in a careful and a balanced way so that we're not going to see a big surge in cases again. Here in Albuquerque with APS making the decision not to go back into the classrooms until January, we have a little bit of a break from this, but in other parts of the state, we're starting to see some cases tick up for students and staff members in schools, and none of us want to see that. I guess what I would really like to say is, we need to be thinking about longer term where this goes from here. I know everyone's kind of talking about getting back to normal. We're talking about, can't wait for 2020 to be over. The things we're asking for people to wear masks and to be careful will go on probably, well into 2021. I would like it to be otherwise, but this November 1st idea of a vaccine being available is not realistic. I don't think it's possible for there to be a safe and effective vaccine out here that quickly. And if folks haven't heard, one of the leading candidates, they had to pause the trial for the vaccine because there were some concerns with it. And that's the kind of thing we want people to look for, the kind of safety and the kind of care, in developing something like that. So, a vaccine will be available at some point, but maybe not as soon as we'd all like. So we just need to continue to be cautious in the meantime. More important than anything else, more important this year than any other year, please get vaccinated against flu. There are potential complications with COVID and flu co-infections. And we also don't want any more flu cases than necessary to tie up resources in the hospital system. Flu is still a very serious illness as well, causes a lot of serious conditions in vulnerable populations, notably the elderly, but also in young children, also in pregnant women. And with COVID on the field with it this year as well, we expect that to be a big problem. So you'll hear us from city side and from state side pushing really hard. Please, folks, get a flu vaccination this year and try to help relieve some of that burden. I'm sure there will be some other questions, but that's kind of the general where we're at.
I'm sorry, do we have any questions in the chat?
No, Counselor. No question.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. And thank you for your work. I know that environmental health has also been stretched, and it's a tough time for everyone, but we'll get through it. And, there's been other pandemics and we've gone through it. So we will get through this one as well. So that kind of, we might actually adjourn a little bit early today. I'm going to have Susan go over the District 5 state funding update. So Susan, do you want to pull that up? And I'm sorry about my dog. She started barking a minute ago.
I have it up, and I put my dog that barks really loud in the back room, so hopefully he'll just be satisfied with his bones.
The fun of Zoom, right?
So yeah, the 2020 capital outlay was completed in going into February. However, then with COVID, a lot of it was sort of jeopardized, but we pulled it through due to lobbying and then just really making the case clear to the governor and to the transportation secretary how important these projects are and how long that they've been on hold. So that's the good news. So the council already touched on Cibola Loop Community Complex, and there are 1.5 million in city bonds that will go towards the project, and then 600,000 from the 2019 capital outlay, but nothing in 2020. So as the counselor stated, there's a new property that needs to be purchased for hydrology, for drainage, as it is in a drainage basin. It's the Cibola drainage basin. And that property hasn't been purchased. However, we're going forward with a design at this point for the community center. And so that's why the senior services, city senior services department is involved. So that's exciting. And then the single family housing RFP had to be reissued. And so I don't know if you all remember, but we went through the process last year and now we're doing it again this year. But this year we have some really positive leads on awardees for the single family housing. And again, that won't be apartments, that will be single family housing. So that's Cibola Loop. And then some projects that the counselor has had her eye on since 2019 capital outlay are Petroglyph Estates Park and Eagle Ranch Park. So those have never been funded by the capital outlay. So at this point, Councilor Borrego and Parks and Recreation has agreed with Councilor Borrego to go ahead and just start the projects regardless of capital outlay. So it is within feasibility to do them solely from the city side. However, it's not ideal because they take a lot. Petroglyph Estates, total cost is 160,000, maybe more for the playground equipment, and we just found out that it's also in a drainage basin and will need a designer. So the counselor has funded the design for the Petroglyph Estates playground equipment and park, and that was due because of the drainage features. The cost there was 22,874. So a contractor is already communicating with Parks and Recreation, and they will be working soon in that area. And then Eagle Ranch Park, this has playground equipment, but it's really old and it's not, I mean, it's safe, but we want it to be nice for the children and for the families. And this is at 1/2 Congress Northwest, 3500 1/2 Congress. So that cost is 124,000 for the playground equipment. These are really expensive sets, but so fun and engaging for children. And that design contractor is in the process of being hired as well. So that's the good news with the playground equipment. And the counselor and I were just talking about something to do for pickleball courts. And there's a chance we can get some striping in at Sierra Vista Pool, which is just on the north side of Montano. And there are
we just put in a new slide in that park as well.
Yes.
Which we actually hadn't announced until tonight. So there were some improvements done to that park, along with Eagle Ranch Park, which is just up the street on Coors and Eagle Ranch.
Eagle Ranch Park is just now hiring a designer, but Piedras Marcadas.
I'm sorry, Piedras Marcadas. Yeah.
And that is completely done. And that was 2019 capital outlay in the amount of 86,000. And that was the counselor working with the state representative and senators, and they really heard her her call for the need there in that neighborhood. It wasn't ADA accessible. That was the first problem. So Piedras Marcadas is complete. You can go there. It's I didn't put down the address.
Well, it's right on the corner of Coors and Eagle Ranch.
Right.
And you might mention McMahon.
Oh, I am. I'm going to talk about, man, I was just going through the parks. So Petroglyph Little League is a really popular Little League, and they have some nice fields at Mariposa Park, which is one of our favorite parks in District 5. And they have $600,297 from 2019 capital outlay that had to be fought for in the 2020 special session. So we're really proud of that. And we have a park, the Parks and Recreation has hired the survey team, and the design concepts are pending. So that will be great for the children also, and everyone play ball when we can again. The bus stops. So this is another kind of focus of Councilor Borrego to improve our, transportation systems. We're far out there. There's the transportation center on Cibola. And so the bus stops need to be improved so that people aren't sitting in the sun and the rain and cold all times a year. There was one already covered at Homestead and Golf Course. That was 2019 capital outlay, and it looks great. It's a beautiful turquoise piece. They won't let us personalize them, or we would try. And then there's the exciting news is the 2020 capital outlay was allocated for $50,000, and there is this extremely popular bus stop that is just kind of shambling down. Unfortunately, we already had to go in and bolster up the bench because it looked like people were going to fall. So this is at Eagle Ranch and Coors, and the cost is extreme. It's $150,000 because of the sidewalk improvements and the curb and gutter that has to go in. But we have $50,000 from 2020 capital outlay, and now the counselor and the transit department are coming together to fund the rest of that bus stop. So you should see that. They're not they're not time consuming, so we'll have that in hopefully this year or soon after. Bus stops that weren't funded: Golf Course, Southbound, and McMahon. We'd like to have that funded if you want to talk to your representatives. And then going into
any projects that weren't funded, I'll just mention, we usually resubmit them for the following year. And as you all know, next year is going to be tough at the legislature, but we're still going to go fight for our projects.
Right. So medians, District 5, being a new area, it doesn't have the beautification that you see in the other parts of Albuquerque, and it really deserves that with the commercial centers and the number of residents that live out here. I think that would really add an element of view to the viewscapes that are preserved, and just beautification. The good news is there are some at Homestead, right, Counselor? The Homestead medians are going in. Those are almost complete.
Taylor Ranch Road.
Taylor Ranch
is almost complete.
Yeah, so that was actually capital outlay from 2019 and 2018.
And we'll be having a groundbreaking for that one when it's done.
Those are important. I mean, they're really at one of the entrances into District 5. So I used to live over there. I like it. And and then this year in 2020, $250,000 was secured for medians. And these projects are really expensive because of irrigation, and the irrigation is absolutely essential, as it's right in the center of this heat bank of the street. And so the $250,000 will probably go to beautification on Irving. And that would be between Tamar and Prescott. There are some other projects, And it won't cover all of the cost. And the total cost for this project is 374,000. But it will certainly have the design. Other projects are Montano medians, which would be funded by both District 1 and District 5. So that's the advantage for those, since it's the border between districts. And then you also have Unser medians from Irving to Bandelier, which should be landscape. Those are on the councilor's radar. I know people have sent in other portions, and you know, the fact is that not a lot of medians are landscaped in District 5, but we're trying to get the big, I guess, items, the roads that are traveled frequently by commuters home and back to the commercial centers. So 250 for that. And then McMahon, which the counselor asked me to touch on, Anastasia Ridge Avenue to Cayenta Street. It has this strange jog that has been really bothering not just the counselor, but DMD, I think, is already, you know, they're aware that it's not a great configuration for this road, especially at night. So there's 300,000 from 2019, and a design contractor has been hired. So I think this is a $5 million project. Is that correct, Counselor? And so the 300,000 isn't the full amount that's needed for this design. So DMD is actually working here to make sure that this process is started. So that was just approved by council, the design contractor. And then Paseo, I think you've gone over Paseo. Do you want me to do that one again?
No, I think you can just post the amounts on that we have. But we're at about 2/3 of the way funded for that that particular road. So we're going to need to go back up to Santa Fe because we're looking at state funding for that. The other thing that I didn't mention was Unser Boulevard, which basically from Montano all the way to McMahon. We're looking at federal funding, and in the summer, this past summer, we just were able to get on the federal priority list. So we can ask for funding for Unser Boulevard. And the city is looking at funding the design on that. And as a matter of fact, it was just on our council agenda and it passed this last Monday to look at the designer for an in-house designer for that. So that's going to be an important project. I also wanted to mention Councilor Sena and I had started working with Councilor Sanchez, Ken Sanchez, before he passed on economic development study for Double Eagle Airport. And we were able to get $50,000. So the airport study, economic development study is done, but it's only done for the airport itself. And I've been working with the director of aviation to complete that. That is done. It's on my desk. I'm still reviewing it, and we should have that out soon. But I'm gonna ask for another portion be done to look at, because the county, you know, brought in Amazon, and Atrisco Vista has been a priority for Commissioner Debbie O'Malley. So what I'm looking for is a land use study around the airport. And I was able to secure $25,000 on Monday night, as a matter of fact, for that portion of the study. So it would be a land use study that would look at what types of industries, types of economic development projects we might want to look at in the future, and what kind of, also protecting our environment, because there are some areas in there that are sensitive lands. And so those are important to me as well, because in developing Paseo and Unser, I mean, we do want to protect our sensitive lands, and it's important. I know it's important to the West Side Coalition, and it's important to me, and there will be precautions as we move forward to ensure that those things are done. And we have our environmental health department on with us, so that's probably very important to them as well. The last thing I wanted to mention was, and Susan, you may have some other things, but I don't know if this was on your list. In the upcoming year, we will be starting our project at West Side Boulevard between 528 and Golf Course. And we will be expanding that road. We've been working with state DOT on that, with Mayor Hull and his administration, Rio Rancho. And we know that's a heavily traveled area. So we have $5 million from the city and a matching grant from the federal government on that particular project. Is there anything else you have, Susan?
I just have a couple of things to mention, and that is the Maloof Air Park, which the councilor actually was involved with sort of subsidiarily on the side. She visited the park, but the Maloof Air Park, the people that use the park for their drone practice, they actually made the application for capital outlay with Parks and Recreation and Councilor Borrego's endorsement, and they were awarded $75,000. And then they so kindly offered to return the money when the COVID retraction started, but it wasn't necessary. And so I'm not sure what the status of that is, but there are improvements to be seen at that park, and drones are really becoming popular and fun, and I think it's a good time to improve that. And then the final thing is that on October 1st, Thursday, there is a press conference on the northwest corner of Golf Course in Paradise to kind of announce and celebrate the completion of those improvements. And I know a lot of people waited in traffic, so we're happy that's over, and now the road is better and there will be less traffic. October 1st at 11:30, if you want to come out.
Thank you, Susan. That was a really good job of summarizing. We're kind of way ahead of schedule, which is great. We'll be looking again in, I guess it's 2021, at our capital outlay that we didn't receive last year, and we'll be resubmitting those. But we'll see how the budget goes. The state budget is projected to be down. I think the governor knows that, the legislators know that. They're looking at some other possibilities to increase revenue, which we may or may not agree with, but we'll see what they come up with. And we were lucky that our funding, particularly, I think we only lost a few of our projects in June when they had the special session. But moving forward, the city is also starting its budget process, and we will be starting in the next couple of weeks. So I'm sure that people will want to tune in and see how that goes. We're lucky that we were able to receive several allocations of CARES funding. And this last city council meeting, there was a bill sponsored by two of our councilors to give $10 million of that CARES money to small businesses. That bill was R2092. It's a $10 million grant that would go to the Office of Economic Development and distributed to businesses that are between 5 and 50 people, and they cannot receive over $10,000. But if they've received money from the state through one of their grants, it cannot be a total of more than $10,000. So I'm sure that $10 million will be going pretty quick. So I wanted to announce that because that's a really important bill that just went through. And again, that was R2092 if people want to take a look at it, or if they want to contact the Office of Economic Development, because that will give an infusion to our small businesses, which are very important to us. And, we're going to be looking for every project that involves construction and jobs, and hopefully keep our economy flowing through this next year. as we don't know how far into 2021 we will go with COVID, but it appears that it's going to be a difficult time for, as we move forward. And it's encouraging, though, to hear the numbers that Mr. DeMena discussed and that the governor has discussed. In terms of Halloween, I just want to mention this because I've had some emails from some of my constituents regarding Halloween, and until the governor and the mayor have put out a ruling on that, we don't have an answer on how Halloween is going to be treated. But I was on the phone today with Cottonwood Mall, with the marketing, and they're looking at possibly doing some kind of a drive-through for the kids, where you could drive up and the kids could show their costumes, and they would get some kind of a little goodie bag. In addition to that, we would maybe do a sock drive for our homeless people, because we're having some difficulty. We were on the phone today with Carol Pierce, the Director of Family and Community Services. It'll either be a sock drive or a food drive, and then we'll donate those to a local charitable business, not business, excuse me, nonprofit, which might be one of the homeless shelters, or we even talked about maybe even helping Rio Rancho out a little bit, because I think that they have St. Felix, I think it is, pantry. So we want to help our folks as much as possible. Susan?
I was just going to add that in all cases with Halloween, since we don't have clear direction on that, but if anything happens, things need to be individually packaged, like in little eggs or paper bags. You're not going to want everyone grabbing into a common source. That's all.
So we have a few folks on, and I think what we'll do now is we'll turn to some of our participants. And I know that we had some questions, and I see a couple of our folks on. I see Mike Snowball, I see Dr. Joe, I see Renee Horvath. I don't know if there's any other folks that are on, but do we want to go ahead and move on into our questioning? Maybe we can adjourn this by 7:30. And I think Julian, are you gonna let them in?
They're all in here, Counselor.
Okay. All right. Who would like to be up? Dr. Joe, are you talking? Because you're muted.
Counselor, Mr. Chelman has his hand raised as well.
Okay, so why don't we start with him then? Because I think Mr. Chelman?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, there you are. Thank you.
So I was curious, we'd corresponded by email, and I wanted to know what the follow-up legislation for R65 was. I think that something might have come down the pipe, but I wanted to hear about that.
Okay, which was R65? You have to remind me.
That was the one about the military equipment for APD.
Oh, okay. So there is a new bill that's being sponsored by Councilor Pena. She's actually the sponsor. And I, myself and Councilor Bassan have co-sponsored that with her. And we're actually working with APD. And there's a list in that bill that talks about what equipment basically they could live with and not live with. And so we've been somewhat negotiating on that because the other bill, as you know, it did not pass, and it was very controversial, and APD was not in favor of it. So we decided that, it would be better to try to work with them, and so that bill will be coming up.
So it doesn't have a number yet, so the public can't go read it yet?
I don't think that it's been published yet. I don't
Okay.
believe it's been published yet, but we will have a press conference on that when we do publish it.
Okay, I'll be on the lookout for that. And one more quick question. You've been mentioning your website. Are you talking about your Facebook page, or do you have another website that people should be looking at for information?
No, on my Facebook page is really my private page, but they're on the city council website. I have a section that's devoted to my projects and also expenditures and so on. So for sake of being transparent. And you
Gotcha.
can go to
Okay.
that. If you can't find that, you can contact Susan and we'll put you in touch with it.
Okay.
You just go straight to Albuquerque City Council and then find your counselor, and it will show the counselor Borrego's picture, and then you click on that and everything comes up. And there's also plans there, some plans that she sponsored on Paseo del Norte, on the one that you referred to, the Double Eagle Airport plan will be posted there. So, and our email contact information is there. So it's just the city council webpage, find your counselor. There we are.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Sure thing. Thanks.
I'm sorry, are we being hacked, Julian?
I don't believe so. I think you're just unmuted.
Okay.
Mr.
All right.
Snow will look like.
All right, Mr. Snowball? Oh, I think I had Dr. Joe first.
Ma'am, I'll yield. I'm not from District 5.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joe. Mr. Snowball, how are you?
Just fine. And yourself, Counselor?
Very nice to talk to you because I know that you and I talk all the time on email.
Well, I always appreciate talking with you. You always respond. And
Oh,
that's a great
no.
thing.
I try.
You put up with me. So that's great.
I know you live way up by Rainbow, right?
In Ventana Ranch West.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. And I got an old question as to what's going in on the south side of Paseo at Ventana Parkway. And I'm just wondering if you ever did find out what might be going in there.
Yeah, I believe that that's a housing project.
Is it?
Yeah, I believe it's a housing project. I don't think it's a commercial development.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, it's good to see that because that's all good for this part of the world up here.
Yes, I
And,
know. I drive up to your area regularly. My
Yeah, good.
my little 97 BMW convertible. I drive up there sometimes.
Oh,
just
that's
to-
wonderful.
yeah. So I'm in your area.
Wonderful, wonderful. I noticed that Paseo is getting awfully full of trash, all the way from basically Universe all the way to I-25. It really looked bad the other day when we drove through there. So I know that's a problem, and it's an expensive problem, but if it could be picked up, it would be great.
We will definitely get in touch with our solid waste department and let them know.
All right.
We have a lot of problems with Paseo trash, and
Oh,
I think
yeah.
some of it is a result of construction and things flying out of people's cars and trucks.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I'm in touch with DOT like at least every 3 weeks from between I-25 and Eagle Ranch, because that is DOT, by the way.
Okay.
Everything
Okay.
from Eagle Ranch west is our city solid waste. So
Wonderful.
there are jurisdictional issues in there.
Okay, I understand. But I appreciate all that you're doing, and you have a lot of projects on the table, and they all sounded good. So excellent.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we're juggling, we're a developing district for sure.
We
and-
are.
And we have a lot of issues with traffic.
Yeah.
So we're trying to
Absolutely.
address those. But we appreciate you being on.
Appreciate it. That's all I've got, Counselor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I saw Renee Horvath. I think Renee, you're representing the Coalition along with Dr. Joe? I'm sorry, my dog decided to bark.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, good, okay. Yeah, well, thank you for holding this meeting and thank you for trying to hold the line last week. I know that wasn't easy and just the way you probably felt is how we've been feeling all year. It's been the worst process to go through. And I'm hoping that we can improve the IDO process because there should never be that many items on planning, zoning issues, because it involves a lot of more detail on a lot of those issues. So we need to improve the planning process for planning our documents out better. Because in the past, I used to go to these planning meetings and, you know, they were easy and you felt like people understood what you were talking about and we had a really good vision. But now I feel like we're always fighting to maintain some of our quality life because I feel like some of the things that they're voting on isn't going to get us there. And I'm a little worried about the west side. I see a lot of applications for a lot of apartments and these are really big apartments. They're not the 2-story apartments anymore. And so, and people are starting to get a little concerned and you don't have like you used to. So I feel like we're being taken advantage of. I see a lot of applications and I think the East Side counselors don't understand that because they're already developed. And, you know, if you look around on the East Side, there are single family homes, they're 1-story, they have these beautiful parks all over the place. And here I think we're going to become the dumping ground for a lot of density, a lot more than the rest of the city has ever seen. So I'm a little concerned about that. So we kind of need a little bit of help around here with the planning issues and beef up the protections. And the EPC is mostly made up of development people, and they don't understand the protective requirements. And a lot of the planners seem new and they don't understand them either. And the IDO is new. So we're kind of, I don't know, it feels like a mess and we kind of need to get a handle on it. So, and I don't feel very good about things right now. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Well, I appreciate your being on, Renee. I do. I know the coalition has been frustrated and I'm listening. And I know some of our other counselors are listening. I don't think it all falls on deaf ears. Remember, I have almost 40 years of planning experience. So yeah, I'm okay with getting beat up a little bit. I'm really okay with it. I was talking to the mayor's office the other day with someone in the mayor's office and they were joking with me about it. And I said, you know, it's par for the course, but you know, I was actually talking to Susan about it that evening after the council meeting. And, you know, Susan has a background in planning. She said, you know, you always need to have people who question things and, you know, because everybody should not disagree. I mean, we should have those questions. And I think when we have those questions, the issues kind of float to the top that are really the issues that we need to start focusing on. So I don't think it's something that we need to, you know, I mean, I think we need to be concerned, but I think we also need to understand that, you know, everyone is not always going to agree. And so then we just look for the ways to sort of peel the onion a little bit and figure out what is not working and what is, and how we maneuver through that. I am looking also at the process for how we're going to start our community planning areas. That's Because I think that's another area where that we can start looking at making some additional amendments. We also have the annual review. So the issues that were brought up to me at this last meeting, I will be looking at to possibly bring those up again.
Oh, right. And then I find that a lot of times, you know, when I convey some ideas that need to be addressed, like through this process, it gets lost in translation and we never quite reach what we're trying to achieve. Especially, you know, the West Side has a lot of open space areas. And just real quick on this budget, keep in mind that we need money for open space for the West Side. And I know that Councilor Harris has that 2% open space, and it's mostly going towards Harris Canyon, which is fine. But we also we need buffers around the volcano areas. We could look at that and around the river area. And so, you know, we should be asking now for some of this open space money and looking at ways to buffer these areas better on the West Side. And especially with the density that I see, I don't think that's asking for much, because we're going to get a lot of density now. And I think we need to start kind of planning ahead and trying to preserve the quality of life for ourselves. And because a lot
and
of
I know you're on the open space board, so I appreciate that you're bringing that up to me, because that's really important. And you know, as I drive on the Mesa, I think about, you know, we're pushing these roads, and I think, you know, those poor little critters that have to find a new home. So it is something that is important to me, definitely. And we should talk some more about that, Renee, about what kind of funding we should be looking for, because I think that's really important.
Right. I think the preservation is really important, and the quality of life, and getting good design in. We need some people who know how to design things appropriately. Because as I was listening to the discussion about the mosquitoes, well, you know, I was thinking immediately buffers. We always need buffers around our river areas and open space areas, because when we don't do enough buffer protection, we start having problems with fire risk along the Bosque, and even wildlife conflicts, including mosquitoes. And then we've had problems in Taylor Ranch with people backed up to the rocks, and they're dealing with erosion issues. And the ones that don't have so much problems with that are the ones that have a buffer and a single loaded street to separate them from the open space. So we need to look at those kind of designs, and we need people who understand the significance of designing things protectively around our open space areas, and also to preserve our views. And I feel like we're kind of lacking on good design and complementary design too. So we need to.
One of the ideas that I have for that, just so you know, and I have spoken to a couple of people that I know that you might know Angela Williamson, who used to live in my district up in Ventana Ranch. She owns one of the local design companies. She moved, but you know, I've been talking to some folks about the possibility of pulling together a committee, like kind of a task force that, and maybe not making it an official task force, but more like a committee to look at bridging the gap between the development community and the neighborhood, because I don't think all this infighting is really good. I think that it's better to look for some commonalities, and what can we agree on, and what can we agree to disagree on. And then, you know, that way there's a little bit more of and I'd love to talk to you a little bit about this, because I think we need to start somewhere to start bridging those gaps and see if we can't, you know, drawing a line in the sand is not the answer, obviously. So you know, that's something that I'm throwing out to you. And I think I mentioned it to Kathy Adams at one of the coalition meetings. So if that's something that you all might be interested in, I think I would like to sit down over a cup of coffee and talk about that a little bit. Maybe with just a few people.
Yeah. that'd be great.
Counselor, Dr. Joe Valles and Marianne Pendleton have their hands raised.
I'll yield. I'll yield.
Okay, Renee, are you done?
Oh, yeah, yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are going to go to Marianne Pendleton. Marianne?
Hi.
Hi,
I'm
how
trying
are
to
you?
figure out how this all works, but
Well, you're on.
maybe I got it. Okay. My concern, having been in a few car accidents, trying to get across town over the years, on the lack of bridges when we are when we're increasing the density of our population here. I mean, it's just exploding how many people are moving here. I moved here because it was somewhat rural. That's changed a lot. But I'm very concerned about the number of bridges. I realize it's political suicide to even talk about it, but it is a safety issue. I've been trapped on the bridge twice. It took 4 hours to get the ambulance to me. If I'd been bleeding, I could have died. It's a big deal. So I really wish that you would all consider the safety aspect of the increasing population here. And
I think that's an important issue, Marianne. And I will tell you that one of the things that we've tried to focus on is getting more jobs on this side of town so people don't have to cross over. You know, obviously a lot of people work on the base and they have to travel or downtown. But yeah, that's an issue that we've talked about for years. I sit on the transportation board, and I'll tell you what, I'll make you a promise that I'll bring that up to them. See how that flies.
I would appreciate it, because I really don't want us to turn into a parking lot over here. And the aspect of getting jobs over here, it's helped getting the hospitals here. That's helpful.
Yes. And I just talked
the
to
rest of it, it's kind of pie in the sky. It's been going on since we started building over here, trying to get jobs here. And not to be negative, but having been stuck in traffic for
Oh, I don't think you're being negative at all. We've all been in that traffic situation, you know. Yeah, but I will raise that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Transportation board.
And I want to stress, I'm really concerned about the views. It's a beautiful neighborhood here. That's why I moved here, because I'm right near the Bosque and I can see the mountains from my home. It's great, but don't hide them all. Don't destroy our views. Don't put up all these high-rise, nasty-looking apartment buildings like they're putting up all over the rest of the city. It'll break my heart and so many other people's.
One of the amendments that I had, which Renee was talking about earlier with the IDO, was to take Coors out of the, you know, to preserve the view protection. And it died, that amendment died. And I was very disappointed with that, but that doesn't mean that I can't bring it up again. And I will tell you that you may want to talk with Councilor Sena and Councilor Pena, because the majority, you know, I still have some view protections in my district. They don't have really any in their district. So they may want to, you might want to talk to some of those counselors.
I will do that. But thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate everything you've done. And I love what our little cute signs at Mariposa Park are.
Oh, the butterflies.
Little butterflies, yeah.
Those are, somebody asked me one day, what is the significance of a butterfly? And I said, well, that's a mariposa. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
thank you
for
very
being
much. On
much.
with us this evening.
Thank
All
you.
right. Do we have anyone else?
Counselor, we have Dr. Joe Valles with his hand raised, and then Miss Renee Horvath again with her hand raised.
Okay, Dr. Joe, thank you for yielding and giving up your
Yeah.
time earlier.
I'm not sure that we have that much time left unless Renee has a few more ands in there. Renee, you know, I'm always getting money for that. Listen, Councilor Borrego, I want to thank you and Susan for allowing me to participate. And I also want to congratulate you on all the projects and those efforts that are being made in District 5. The nature of my comments is the severe disappointment that I had in the workings of the Wednesday City Council meeting. I feel very strongly about this. Some of the comments that were made by Councilor Don Harris were insulting and uninformed. And they require some kind of apology, in my opinion. I mean, we may not get it, but I think so. The other issue, I think, is that there was a point there. I've been going through this since 1985. So when Renee says everything was fine and dandy, well, it hasn't always been fine and dandy. There was a moment there in the city council when you were questioned by Diane Gibson, Trudy Jones, et cetera, and the flavor that I got, it's hard for you in the moment to kind of get all this, but when you're absorbing this and you're replaying the video and all that, you catch some things. The thing that I caught is there was almost an attempt to set two different standards. Yes. One for city councilors on the east side of the river and another one for city councilors on the west side of the river. I'm really glad that Councilor Pena addressed that issue and said that if Councilor Diane Gibson submits her stuff at the last minute, why can't Councilor Borrego do the same? I thought that was very important, but it doesn't erase the fact that they were attempting to do that. That's number one. And I know, Councilor Borrego, I don't want you to get in trouble. You don't have to say very much, just listen for me. The other notion is,
I'm used to getting in trouble, Dr. Joe.
Good trouble, remember that. The other notion is that there are protections in place all over Coors. You know, I wish that people on the other side of the river wouldn't just pay attention to that verbiage and then come out here and see how much hasn't been protected. Because here's the crux. The crux is the protections only exist if the EPC, DRB, et cetera, do their job. If they do follow the law, if they do all that stuff right, those protections will be in place. I had a case in front of the zoning hearing examiner. ZHE is the other one too. 31 findings and all erroneous and contrary to law. And it was embarrassing to take that up to city council. But here's the problem, is when we don't get those protections that everybody gives verbiage to, the only recourse that we have is to appeal a bad, wrong, capricious decision. It's the appeal process that costs us money. It takes us away from interacting with you, our representatives. And then our appeals are characterized or presented to you by the planning department, by council staff and Mr. Melendres. And then we have a very limited amount of time to really explain the depth of our concerns. It's a very difficult process. So to just flippantly say that protections are in place, that's just not true. That's just not true. And I'm glad you said a while ago that districts 2 and Clarissa's district, we really don't have those kinds of protections. So where they're coming from with these protections exist, I have no idea. And then for council staff, planning staff, to say there's protections in place, where do they drive Coors? It's frustrating, Councilor Borrego. It's very frustrating because we're not inept out here. And the other insult that came was about Wascona. the fact that Wascona was, was late and the just woke up, hasn't been doing it, whatever, that implication. I copied you on a letter I sent to the executive council. I'm also finessing the letter as a letter potentially to city council. But
Have you included the mayor in those discussions?
I am going to.
Yeah.
But that's just very insulting to Wascona. Wascona from the very get-go, started working on finessing that IDO because number one, we didn't understand it. Number two, there was a lot of stuff wrong with it. And the neighborhoods were essentially diminished in that document. And I remember, Councillor, that I think you and Ken Sanchez made the determination that it would be better instead of I think there was a mandate for 9 different council districts to set up committees to deal with the IDO, right? Each district. Ken Sanchez and yourself, and we invited, and you invited Clarissa Pena. You thought that since the West Side Coalition had already been working on this, that it would behoove you all to just work with that committee and designate it as representing the 3 districts. Clarissa declined. I'm sorry, Councillor Pena declined, but you and Ken, as a matter of fact, we met. I held a meeting and we presented you with a report. And ever since then, we have been doing the legwork, the homework. Renee's is an integral part of all that, but there's others. And for Councillor Harris to flippantly just dismiss the West Side Coalition that was just totally wrong. And it's hard not to be, it's hard to be unemotional about it, because I really do care about this West Side. I moved here in 1985, built my home. I got involved with the West Side Coalition way back in '85. And so we've had these battles. And so I think you can feel my frustration, and I want to be fair. If I send a letter to City Council, I'm not attacking anyone personally, but I am attacking how they deal with the issues and how they mischaracterize the efforts that are out here in this community. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Dr. Joe. I know you've been involved for years. I worked with you on the other side when I was a planner. So I know your passion. I am equally frustrated because I try to not stop the IDO, but to slow it down a little bit on several occasions. Wrote a letter to the Journal, as you remember. And I think that what's interesting is what Mary Ann Pendleton mentioned earlier, is that we only have so many river crossings, but the jobs are on the other side of the river. And these are important issues. And we are trying to bring some of those jobs to the West Side. And as you know, I've been screaming up and down since I was elected, the West Side is part of the city, and we do have a right to be heard. Right. And I think it's important that in this process, and I think we're starting to, it's going to take time. It's going to take time, but I think we're starting to create a little dent, whether it's a big dent or not, it's a little dent, because people are starting to hear another side to this issue. And it's not to say that, the IDO is already passed, but ensuring that the West Side is being heard for the issues that it does have to experience is very, very important. And I will assure you that I'm not going to stop talking about that. I might get a little bruised up once in a while, but I do know that we need to be heard. Yeah, Councilor Borrego, I think the word is to be meaningfully heard. Meaningfully heard, yeah. Thing. The other thing that I would say about in terms of bridges, roads, and all that is Rio Rancho has a responsibility to provide a bridge because they keep using all of ours. But there's one thing I wanted to add.
Counselor, and that's this. We keep hearing almost every year when there's a revamping or there are about to be amendments and all that kind of stuff. Well, let's not worry about it. We can fix it in the next round, right? There's a big problem with that. While we're waiting for the fixes, a year goes by and stuff gets built. It's just a simple thing, you know? And I think it goes over, maybe it goes over some counselors' heads, or it really doesn't, and that's troubling. And anyway, thank you much.
I appreciate you, Dr. Joe. I do. And I appreciate your taking the time tonight, because I know you're a busy man and coming on our program. Renee, you look like you're trying to say something.
Oh.
One more end.
Well, I just was going to comment on that vote regarding the major transit corridors being added to the list of other corridors for workforce housing bonus density heights, adding 2 extra stories onto your apartments if you do workforce housing or if you do parking reductions. I was disappointed that the planning staff was advising Councilor Sena that we were protected from that, that CORS was, and we're not. And of course, you can't speak during those city council meeting after public comment, and 1.5 minutes to address all those issues. I mean, really, a lot of those issues was trying to educate the counselors on a lot of these issues, and it's just impossible. And those, so it was disappointing that Councilor Sena listened to them, because we know what the CORS corridors plan said, the sector plan, and we know what the IDO says. We do not have those protections in place. So they were wrong. And so this is a frustration that we're feeling. And then we're always asked to compromise our design standards, our view regulations. We're constantly being asked to compromise all the time on all the, and we've already compromised. Sometimes I ask staff, why don't you just tell them no? We've already compromised on these issues. They're always asking for another variance. They want more density. They don't want to provide any buffers to our open space areas. They're just always, and most of our time is spending going to these hearings, these variance hearings, saying no, going to, like Dr. Joe said, going to these appeals, no. And then they look at the neighborhoods as being, I guess, troublemakers, but we're trying to preserve the quality.
Well, one thing I learned a long time ago, and Dr. Joe remembers Rex King, who used to be one of our planning directors, who was a very good planning director, by the way. And he always told me this when I was in planning. He always said, young blood, because I was much younger then, he said, remember, you need 5 votes. So I have to put that on the table to the coalition, is that, you know, we need, in any instance, for anything that we pass, you know, my vote by itself is you know, it's going to be out there, but you need 5 votes. And that's really important. And it's really important that when we're trying to get things through, people understand that in order to get something through, I mean, you have 9 counselors, you need 5 votes. And to this day, Rex's words still ring true. So I just need to put that out there. And I know that you guys do a lot of volunteer work, but even with that, we need the 5 votes. And I work to try to get them, but it doesn't always happen.
Councilor Borrego, I have to leave, but I would just say that one of the goals should be that that the counselors on the west side, all 3 of them, should make the best attempt possible to be cohesive. I think, you know, it doesn't make sense when we're outnumbered like that. And if we don't want to go back to the old days, we have to remain cohesive. That's it. Otherwise, because it's a little bit about power. If you don't have the power, you ain't gonna get nothing. That's what your 4 or 5 votes mean. So anyway, God bless you all. I'll see you.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Good night.
Good night.
Renee, do you have anything else? If not, I think we're gonna start to wrap up. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Because we're getting pretty close to 8 o'clock here.
Counselor, no one else has their hand raised.
No one else has their hand raised. Okay. Well, I just want to thank the people who are viewing. First of all, I want to thank the people who attended tonight. And I want to thank our presenters, including the police department, the fire department, the environmental health department, and my staff, city council staff, who give up their time regularly. But I also want to thank the coalition members who showed up tonight, because I think it's important that we hear these issues and that other people hear these issues. This will be live streamed on YouTube. And Julian, do you have that address of, because I'm sure other people are going to want to watch this.
Yes, Counselor. If people saw the event flyer for tonight, the link is on there. But we can, and it's also on your webpage too for the event for tonight. But we will make it publishable as well and make sure everyone has it.
Okay, we appreciate that. All right, well, thank you to everyone, and everyone have a good evening. If you need to reach our office, you can either contact myself, Cynthia Borrego at cabq.gov, or Susan B. Hill at cabq.gov, or call 768-3100. And you all have a blessed evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.